Good morning, trading world. It is August 31st, 2022, 7:54 a.m. on the East Coast, and this is my pre-market outlook and technical analysis for day trading the SPY. If you've been following the pre-market videos, you have taken most of your profit from the last rundown with maybe a runner or two left. There is a dead cat bounce building under the surface of all of this sell side activity, and it lines up with the new fund flows that happened on the 1st. There may even be some activity or positioning ahead of it, so we need to manage runners according, like by taking profit. Don't leave money on the table when it's there for the taking. If you try to hold all your positions to the very last tick, that is greed, and you will soon be slaughtered. Be mindful that the weekly market maker's expected move is around 394 on the SPY, and is reasonable odds that a last effort could try to push us there. However, like everything else in trading, just because the probabilities are in our favor doesn't mean it has to happen that way. When I can identify a bearish divergence off the lows of the day, I may start positioning for bullish shots on individual stocks and maybe a little in the index as well. For me, when volatility is this high, I don't like trading single calls, because any fall in VIX, and that could mess with what would have been your profit, even if it does go exactly where you want it to go. Also, I prefer spreads to offset some of the volatility. My weapon of choice in this environment is going to be bull put spreads, because it's a divine risk trade, and a drop of volatility can be used in your favor, turbocharging gains as price moves in your favor and volatility falls. Let's get to the key levels of the day. Alright, here we are with the key levels of the day. Starting on the resistance side, our jack resistance is going to be 399 to 400. Our queen resistance is going to be 401 to 402, which is going to be pretty key to today, because if we can break above this 401 area, it kind of gives us permission to cruise up to at least 405. Our king resistance is 403 to the 410 area. On the support side, our jack support is 397 to the 396 area. Our queen support is 395 to the 394 area, which is going to be very important because this encompasses the weekly market maker's expected move at that 394 area. Then we have our king support 392 all the way down to the 390 area. The main thesis for today, it is bearish biased with a closing below 398.21 with a projected target low between 397 and 392. Let me read that again. The main thesis is bearish, closing below 398.21 with a projected target low of between 397 and 392. All right, our alternate thesis is bullish, closing above 398.21 with a projected target high of between 400 and 406. Again, like I said all week, be prepared for more explosive alternate thesis. The current major channel we're in is 416 down to 397. The major channel below is 397 down to 379. Watch for peaks above the 401 because that gives the market a chance to cruise up to at least 405. With that, let's get into the scenarios of the day. Alright, here's our first scenario and most probable, which is going to be our expansive range day structure. We could look to chop lower, crossing the previous close, and at some point testing or pushing the overnight lows. Then reversing and chopping higher, pushing the previous high boundary made overnight as well. So this is definitely the expansive range day structure because we will more than likely be pushing all the boundaries set in the overnight session. Whether that's the low, whether that's the high. Lows are probably going to want to push toward that 394, which is the weekly market maker's expected move. And once we get there, it's quite normal for us to push just below it. But there's kind of a variance around it where we can go a point or two below, a point or two above, but that magnetic draw still has us on that market maker's expected move. And you'll notice big volume fluctuations when we push away from it or when we're breaking away from it in either direction. So you'll notice your bull volume push when we get ready to break up off of it, and then your bearish volume spike when we get ready to push off to the downside. Alright, here we are with scenario number 2, which is going to be our rounded reversal day type structure. We could get a continued push lower toward the jack or queen support area and find our midday chop around either the queen or king support area before spending the same energy we use coming down to go back up the second half of the day. So that's our rounded reversal day type structure. There's going to be some activity based on reports, GDP, and a couple more things that could kind of push us below the previous close, giving us that scenario for the rounded reversal day type structure to the downside. Now we also have a vice versa alert on this as well. If those reports don't push us close to or below the previous close, we could wind up looking at it the other way, which would be we get a continued push higher first. And that continued push higher would look like this, where we would go, get up around that 400, 401 area, find our midday chop around either our queen or possible king resistance, and then with the same energy we use going up the first part of the day, we would use that same force going down. So that's the vice versa alert on the rounded reversal day type structure. Now let's bring up the last scenario. Alright, our last scenario is going to be our trend day up. We open gap up and start with a fade back toward the previous close represented by the blue line. We find support on or before that previous close, then begin the uptrend for the day or for the morning, better known as our golden window, the best time to trade. We find our midday chop around either the possible queen or king resistance area, and then usually the second half of the day we begin with a head fake that looks to continue the dominant trend of the morning, but at some point in time we end up fading, and that fade usually goes into the close. All right, it'll be interesting to see how big that fade is today, especially if we do get a trend day up, which is our least likely scenario today. So that is it. I hope this helps. Again, there is a dead cat bounce building up under all this sell side activity. I hope you can recognize it. I hope you've gotten or taken a good amount of your profits, and the only things left is your runners. Your runners should not make or break the trade. They're just that extra icing on the cake. As always, your most important job as a trader is to protect the capital that you already have, and we do that by knowing and understanding our risks that we have in each position, and we manage those according to our account size. With that being said, I'd like to close out by wishing you a positive trading day. I hope you have a great one.